So welcome everyone. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to be here with us. This webinar is a collaboration between Tales of Turning, which is a non-profit organization, and RISE, which is an incredible initiative that is a branch of Africa Burn. So to get us started, Lorraine Tanner, who's the Executive Director of Development at Africa Burn, is going to start with a presentation of the work that they've been doing. So over to you, Lorraine. And you on mute, so you just need to unmute yourself.
Cool. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yes.
And now we can see the presentation.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you for the introduction, Jenna Lee. I'm going to start with just a little bit of an intro to the organization, which is Africa Burns Creative Projects, and we're a public benefit organization. And we exist to advance a culture of creativity, and we do this through community building, volunteerism, and really galvanizing a sense of freedom of expression. We're most known for our annual gathering, Africa Burn, which is this. And it takes place in the Tankwa Karoo, which is about 350 kilometers northeast of Cape Town. And every year, about 10,000 people gather for Africa Burn, and that includes internationals as well as locals. And the event itself is part of an international network, which is founded on principles of inclusion, communal effort, civic responsibility, and self-reliance and leaving no trace. And it's entirely participant created. And what we try and uphold is a space of experimentation and also non-judgment. So the program Resilient Shared Endeavour, which is what we're chatting about today, takes some of the elements of the Africa Burn event and in order to form the basis of the program. And the elements are that there's no barrier between participants. At Africa Burn, we say there's no difference between the artist and the audience. They're all participants. That there's volunteering to run the various community services at Africa Burn. Everything from coming in through the gate to community mediation happens with a volunteering input. And one of the things that's fairly unique to Africa Burn and the other events that mobilize in this network is the concept of the theme camp, which is a participant-created space that's really like a front room, and it mobilizes around an activity. It could be a cultural offering. It could be something like yoga or breath work. It could be around music. And basically, that camp is something that everyone is invited to be part of. So popping out of an event space where the focus is more on a kind of festival and celebration, RISE exists to create a space to have more weightier conversations. And when we were designing this program, we came up with the kind of like the 4 big themes around the experiences of women and gender non-binary people. And we looked at consent, gender equity, diversity and intersectionality, and health and wellness as being the kind of the core things that we wanted to broach during this program. And the elements of it is that it's immersive. It takes place over about 5 days, again in the Tankwa Karoo, so it's at a great distance from towns. The nearest town is about 120 kilometers away, and 80 of those on a dirt road. So it is isolated and immersive. It's curated, and we engage with about 40 people to be part of this process. And we invite artists and activists, educators, community mobilizers, because what we really hope is that people will then take the learnings and experience back into their daily lives, and it will ripple through the community activities that they're involved in. It takes a lot of commitment to take a period of 5 days out of daily life. So it's something that people have a strong commitment to doing and honouring. It's co-created, like there being no gap between artist and audience. There's no differentiation. There's no teacher and student in this process. And what's been really lovely is that we've had people join who are starting out on their kind of activist journey, and they've been presenting workshops alongside people who've been doing this kind of work for 20 years. So it really is a space to try new things and experiment. And then it's hands-on, and that means that everybody is involved with the cooking, the tidying up, the preparation for the next sessions, and being part of those processes. And we engage practical skills. So sometimes it will be doing kind of carpentry or tending to the nursery. And then the other focus is on creative dialogue, and that can be through like art therapy, it could be movement, it could be breath work. And then we hope after this process has run its course in the Tangwa, that people then continue to engage with each other as a network through social media, and using the WhatsApp group that we set up for logistics, that they continue to use that to share their own work in their daily lives and to show up for each other when each other need help. The program was birthed during COVID, and it initially had funding from the Solidarity Fund as part of their anti-gender-based violence program. And it was quite challenging birthing this program in pandemic times, because at that time there was very changeable regulations on gathering, which meant it was quite precarious. But I think what it highlighted and has continued to be a challenge is that no matter that it's a funded program, there are still barriers to participation due to the burden that women carry, like the burden of responsibility. So we've had people that can't attend at the last minute because they have a sick child, and there's no one to step in and take on that responsibility. In 2023, we got some funding from the provincial government, but we didn't have enough to return to the Tangwa. So we tried to create the program closer to home on the South Peninsula, and we ran a program at the Sutvarta Environmental Education Centre, which is on the beach on the South Peninsula. And we found that being closer to the shops and services impacted on the process. So when we had the opportunity to return again to the Tangwa in 2024, which is where we met you, Jenna Lee, we really felt that this is a process that needs to have the distance and the isolation to really kind of like drill down into the issues. We can't run away from the things that we're confronted with when we're in such an isolated situation. What's also been wonderful has been the opportunity for the organisation to nourish itself. And coming back after COVID and growing the team again, we've been able to rotate women through this process, and it gives everyone an opportunity to share and create in ways that they wouldn't necessarily get to do in their day-to-day office life. So that's been really, really inspiring. And then the last thing I'm going to touch upon before I hand over to Maloba is that, like Africa Burn, the event, we also theme Rise, but the themes emerge from the process. So they're always done retrospectively. And our first one was Desert Rose, because we rose in the desert for the first time. The second one, Siren Call, because we all took to the sea one day. And then the most recent one, which was last year, Super Moon, because we had a super moon at the event. So yeah, I'm going to hand over now. I think it's a good segue to hand over to Maloba.
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Maloba. I am the archive administrator and member of Africa Burn. I've been a burner for 3 years, and this is just my journey. My first event was into 2023 through applying for the Anati program. I was joined by, I was rather part of the Senbantu, which is a Praetorian arts hub group. So Duma was part of it. I basically was just volunteering at Chillers. I got employed through the Art Bank internship program with Africa Burn, and I got invited to my first Rise in late 2023, where I made friends, acquaintances, and extended my community experience. Next slide, please, Lorraine. Okay, so I will dovetail on what Lorraine said in the previous or intro slides with my own personal experience of RISE as an interchangeable program of Africa Burn. In terms of hopes, we hope to reach more people through networking and solidarity. We hosted our first Pan-Africanists, as I will call them, to RISE, which is Basadi and Molebs, respectively coming from Botswana and Lesotho, whom I've built great friendship with. It's more of a sisterhood because we culturally, we speak the same or similar language. I hosted them where I live. So every time they come to Cape Town, they know they always have a home with me. And I look forward to going to Botswana and Lesotho so I can also experience their lives and what they are also faced with, challenges that they are faced with environmentally, socially, or economically as well. But we are also looking forward to hosting more Pan-African Burnists as part of the organization's strategic development. RISE also engages guests with various workshops, but the magic happens really behind the scenes with collaborative teamwork, when, as Lorraine said, when we prepare food or recycling, which is also leave no trace, cleaning up of our spaces, which is self-reliance, and some of those moments also allowed for bonding to take place on a personal level and has led to a number of guests, such as Catherine, Josie, Sinazo, and Tracy Lee, being engaged with other projects that Africa Burn facilitates, such as Hammer School, where they learned about metalwork and woodwork, and they also got to create artworks that were showcased at Streetopia and this year's main event. Monique, who was also part of the second RISE, she was invited to partake in the event, the Streetopia, and the main event, going through her project, the Jankonunus, which was like recycling old materials, but making costumes out of it and making awareness of leaving no trace and how we can recycle art. As mentioned, we use our WhatsApp groups to provide an immediate support, which is where we are able to support each other with our other endeavors, as well as to connect, as well as celebrating each other's birthdays, really, and coming together for special occasions during the event. We used it to like, hey guys, what's happening? Let's go meet up. Who's coming to the main event this year out of the blue? That's where we also arranged for us to also just catch up during the event, you know, just see what we have been up to throughout the past 9-10 months. Obviously, again, RISE also encourages others, or encourages rather us, to be our authentic selves. Naledi Naledi came through the event or RISE with her daughter, and that was really beautiful to see, you know, like as a way of inspiring a young girl to be amongst women who are going through many things, but at the same time, just also celebrating themselves and creating learning. Mezo, who's a barista, her machine got broke on our way back actually from the RISE event, but we were able to replace her machines so that she can continue making a living, because she used it as a way of making a living for herself. And Hannah, they were basically the first participants of the first RISE. And for me, that made me realize it's like them passing on the baton. So RISE is like a saving space for others for me. Next slide, please. In terms of skills and transfers, if you can see there, each participant is encouraged to gift a workshop session. It can be clay sculpting, therapy, doll making, creating traditional music instruments, poem performance lessons, learning how to use power tools, or braiding each other as a transformative element of each one teach one principle. We also get to end the evenings off with talent events like Elisa Davanchi with her piano, Talfood Princess serenading us with her vocal lyrical talents, or Milebs reminding us to rise again with her poetry. But the most successful story I could share with regards to the skills transfer is Tleduma. She started off with her sound journey through Chillers, coming to Rise, offering it as a workshop, and eventually finally being able to apply for an artwork, which she got. So this year she was doing her, what do you call this? The sound journey in her own artwork called Nkunkwani at this year's main event. So that is a beautiful thing to see, like how we coming together from Rise, just sharing our own personal workshops and how it can grow through the networks into being something bigger and greater. Next slide, please. Okay, with all the hopes, there's always challenges, but those challenges can also always lead to opportunities. Some of the challenges that we face as women or non-binary women can be emotional support. This is where we talk about how everyone needs such, how everybody has needs, and the bottom corner there, that image of us cooking and catering was a workshop that I offered. And that workshop actually ended up being a beautiful extension into the next Rise event, because that day ladies were so sad because the catering for the time was not palatable. So, you know, I mean, food is also part of well-being. So that also motivated and encouraged another feeding system, which fed on to the last year's event where we were in teams and learning how to cook together. And that was just so beautiful. So as a challenge, it became an opportunity for something better. Other things that can be challenging, for example, I found myself having to cry to one of my workmates because I was not happy with my work, what do you call this? My workshop. But then she reminded me that, you know, we are all in this together and we are not here to judge each other, and there are no high expectations, but rather to just enjoy and explore this. And, you know, just having people or a circle of people sharing the same experiences with you eases one through any challenge. Socially, some of the challenges we can face were probably like changing the narrative that women can't do certain things, such as using power tools, setting up a belt hand, you know, how to rebar. There's a funny story where we had to change a tire of a van just before taking the sunset tour. And it was really amazing because, you know, everybody was hands on deck, all ladies who were left behind, and we made it happen. And they even managed to catch up with the first crew. I was not part of it, but I was just happy to be a part of making sure that they get there. The last thing, though, is resources, which are the major challenges we face on a daily basis. Whether it is having resources and not knowing how to do with it, or lack of resources, Rise offers an opportunity for one to acquire some of those resources through necessary to facilitate a successful workshop. It can be supplies, materials, or anything that one would need to make sure that their workshop is a success, which is more of the organization's mandate, like giving grants and subsidies. The one story that I heard during the last event was Daya, who is an artist. She was approached during the Rise program and asked to maybe consider building this year's temple. She did not obviously go ahead with it, but she reached out to the ladies and asked them to be part of the project. And that on its own was like it stood out for me as a thoughtful collaboration and support, and what Rise was stood out for, you know, for us to do this together, endeavor through things together. Thank you. Next. Okay, these are just some of the remarks from the ladies who participated from the first event, second, and the last one, just how it changed their lives, just how Rise made their networks better or enriched their networks, also throughout the community itself, like Africa Burn and all the other programs that Africa Burn has, as I had mentioned previously. You can see or read through some of that on our website, rise.africaburn.org. And lastly, Tales of Turning. So generally, when we had your workshop, what stood out for me was the question, what are our hopes and dreams for the future? And we had to draw what that could be. I realized that there was an emerged theme of hearts, sun, and peace as our shared vision. And much like Africa Burning, inventing the world anew using art, this very webinar reflects some of the creative methods in which RISE and Africa Burn hopes to achieve throughout its community, and utilizing social media to spread awareness of the impact and importance of these creative methods to connect, heal, and inspire everyone. And so Tales of Turning collects not just art pieces, but pieces of people, because right now you've got all those beautiful artworks that shares our hopes and dreams, and you are able to turn it into right now this very webinar that is able to inspire and heal and connect with others through music, art, and social media. And thank you for letting me share my journey.
Thanks so much, Maloba. It's really wonderful listening to both you and Lars, and just remembering all those great memories and really the very meaningful experience. So it was a great privilege to be part of RISE and to facilitate a workshop and contribute. So really what I'm sharing today is around the art that we did and the theory behind that. So Tales of Turning is a non-profit organization based in South Africa, which also works globally. And we use social media and technology for good for projects focused on gender-based violence prevention, on addressing xenophobia, and we do a lot of work on peace building and violence prevention in general. The social media and technology gives us the ability to reach people at scale without losing the depth of what we do. So our work is really grounded in narrative therapy, conflict mediation, and psychology. So we take a narrative therapy approach where communities and individuals are seen as the experts of their own lives. They know their problems best, the solutions to their problems best, and they have unique resources, skills, and knowledge to help solve these problems. So we facilitate processes where individuals and communities share their knowledge to create new narratives. And through doing this, we explore alternative stories that don't fit with the dominant stories of problems that we may have. So by asking curious questions, we open up new possibilities so people can re-author the stories of their lives to create space for change and for new possibilities. And when we're doing this, it's really important to take into account the social context that we're working in and the power dynamics that are there around gender, class, race, culture, age, and sexual identity, and to really acknowledge that when we are unraveling our stories and co-creating new stories. And what we work a lot with is hope-based narratives. So I think everyone, although there's so much disagreement in the world these days and polarization, I think what we can all agree on is the world's not working the way it is. And it's going to take all of us to co-create how we want the world to be. We're all a piece in the puzzle. Not just one of us has the answers. We need to be creating this new vision and taking action. So this hope-based narrative is really around co-creating a vision of what we want the world to be and moving from fear to hope. So a lot of the imagery that's often used in the social impact sector is, if you're talking about gender-based violence, there might be an image of a man hitting a woman, or if you're talking about xenophobia and immigration, it might be refugees crossing a border in crowds. So we're trying to move away from that and instead show positive imagery, like a man positively interacting with a woman, or a father reading to his child or playing with his child, or the contributions that refugees make to their communities through what the skills they contribute. And so it's not overly moving to the positive, but it's acknowledging those everyday moments of what people are contributing. And this also avoids harmful stereotypes, which the nonprofit sector has been hugely problematic in this, showing categorizing Africa as poverty-stricken and all of this. So it's really moving away from this. And it's shifting from against to for. So instead of saying we're against gender-based violence, we don't want this, we're saying what we're for, what do we want? And part of that is moving from the problem to the solution. So it's very important to note we're not then, making this just this idyllic, there's no problems, this is the vision. We acknowledge the problem, but the way we're communicating doesn't only just stop at the problem, it takes us on a journey also to the solutions. And we're living in such a polarized world, both online and offline. And so we really want to tell stories and create narratives where we focus on our shared values. We really listen to people and find common ground that is inclusive of different people's perspectives and experiences. And on that point, it's really important to include the voices of the communities we're working with and the people who are facing these issues. So nothing should be done without including those people's lived experiences and perspectives. And it's always important to think local in both our language and imagery. So for example, we do peace building training. So in the last South African elections where there was a high risk for violence, we've trained community-based organizations across South Africa in how to monitor for signs of violence in their community, how to identify key stakeholders, monitor for tensions, host dialogues both online and offline. We know the online space has such a high risk for offline violence with mis and disinformation. So to really be engaging in these spaces, we are now and so we also included local languages in that. And we're now adapting this training for Somalia and Syria. So what we're doing is we're going carefully through it. We are using local languages. We also using, when we do use English, we using English phrases that would be familiar to that context. And we're also going very carefully through the imagery. So people must come to that training or that story and it must feel like home to them. So it's all those nuances are so important. And then also around finding the best messenger for stories. So I'm going to go into that a bit later of how we do that at Tales of Turning, but really getting key people to be sharing these new narratives and co-created narratives and ways of being. And what this all shapes into is emphasizing the solution and the action steps to get there. So you start by acknowledging the problem, then the small everyday action steps we can take, and then this vision for a better world that we've co-created. And this really does something beautiful, because if you just show the end vision, it becomes very idealistic and it can feel a bit dishonoring of the issues that all of us are facing. But when you acknowledge the problem and show these little action steps that we can all do in our everyday life to reach this end goal, it becomes something quite powerful and inspiring. And there's also neuroscience behind this, which I love, because you're helping form these new neural pathways when people are seeing this new vision and the steps you can take. And the more people see that in different ways, the more it becomes it can be grounded and become like a real possibility. So this all leads me to this book that we co-created with ART. So I just thought Africa Burn was such a beautiful opportunity. There's people coming from around the world. They all have different lived experiences, different perspectives. And this was a beautiful way for me to design a process. So I designed a process and facilitated at Africa Burn and Rise for people to share their hopes and dreams for how they want the world to be. and to capture that in art and through writing, so whichever medium they felt more comfortable with. And then this all got hand bound into this book. I then went on a peace building fellowship for 3 months in Istanbul, in Turkey. And there were peace builders, people working to create peace and prevent violence in their countries from across West Asia, the Middle East, and North Africa. So Yemen, Somalia, Pakistan, and a whole host of different countries. And they also contributed to this project. So you can see these beautiful imageries. And as anything, it started out as a seed, and it's just really taken on a life of its own. And it's not stopping here, it's still growing. And some beautiful outcomes have been this message from one of a really amazing colleague in Somalia who's doing peace building work. A lot of people have read it at Africa Burn as well, and at Rise, and in different contexts. And it really touched them from their own context. One lady was from Vietnam, who we know has a very difficult history. And she found really solace in this message from now someone in Somalia. You can also see how we use different art mediums. So the one on the left is actually a collage with mixed media, and also tearing out of old books, phrases that captured them, and different things stuck together. This is a beautiful, beautiful image that was included. And we also, in some cases, have used collages because some people feel more comfortable with that. And so some of the threads that have started coming out. So one of my dreams for this is also to use music. So to collaborate with musicians, so this book now contains all these threads that people are weaving together. And how can we create this into songs so we can sing out and dance this new world into being? And so we are looking for more collaborations with musicians, anyone whose heart this touches. We want to work together with them. One of the outcomes was this podcast with Ricardo Kondo and Lisa Triani, who's very much part of the Africa Burn community. So Ricardo played a beautiful song at Africa Burn, which spoke about men's vulnerability, and this, and we know, and this being, as a man, being prevented from sharing your emotions from a little boy. And we know that intergenerational trauma is one of the root causes of violence, whether it be violence against women, violence against children, or there's a high rate of violence against other men. So this song really was very meaningful for me. And we put together a podcast, and this is just the start of a collaboration around music. We want to do a lot of other projects with other musicians. And we've also did a radio show with Lisa on the Africa Burn radio around this project, which was really exciting. And we're looking for more artists to collaborate, to collaborate with, so to make a sculpture, so to take all these hopes and dreams and really ground it into the world and make a sculpture and art pieces that weaves these hopes and dreams together. So I think that the main point of me saying this is that this is all about creativity. And as I said at the beginning, it's going to take all of us. So we are all about collaborations. I think Lorraine made the point of things emerging, and that's what also the narrative therapy looks at. So if this touches you in any way, whether you are part of a community, or you're a musician, or you an artist, or you have a business, businesses are so important in this as well. Please reach out to us with your ideas, and let's take it forward together. So at Tales of Turning, we also use social media to amplify our impact. So on average, people are spending in South Africa 3.2 hours a day online on the internet. So the online environment has become very merged with our offline world. It's shaping our beliefs and attitudes, which is shaping offline behavior. So we really need to be, the space feels very overwhelming, and we know it's often toxic. we really need to be inputting more positive content into that space and being part of it. And so part of narrative therapy and also this art process is documenting the unique knowledge and wisdom that each of us has. So what we do is then we create social media content that's unbranded, and we co-create that and we share it on social media. We have a network of digital activists and peace builders that is based across the globe, and they help we share and amplify that content. For example, we did training with 20 incredible youth in South Africa. They're peer educators in their community around gender-based violence prevention. So you can imagine the knowledge that these young people have. So when we're doing the training, there's just this incredible knowledge in the room. So we taught them how to use social media to amplify their voices and to amplify the work, the incredible work that they were already doing on the ground. And then we connected them to this network so that their knowledge and voices can be amplified. So what we also do is use the social media listening tools that marketing companies use to pull in data from public social media. So this is a way of getting really unique insights. It's a way of deeply listening to people. What are their perspectives on these different topics? How are they grappling with different issues? And what are their problems? What are their solutions to their problems? And it pulls in thousands and thousands of data points. And we work in, as I mentioned, when we do a project in South Africa, we work in all South Africa's 12 different languages. We're doing work in Somalia and Syria. We work in the local languages there. But this also gives us insight into the colloquial language that people are using. So often when we use terms like gender-based violence, xenophobia, masculinity, it really can shut down the conversations with people. So and it's not relatable to them. So we find the underlying issues and colloquial terms that people are using so we can really meet them where they're at. And we do this then also through dialogue facilitation. So dialogues offline, but also dialogues online. We know how polarized and difficult the online space has become. So we're training thousands of people who can go online and have conversations in a more positive way. And this is done by asking curious questions to try and understand that person. Where are they coming from? What is their perspective? What is their lived experience that has led up to this belief? So, for example, the one day I was online and this social media user posted this comment: women love violence, they enjoy it. So I'm now going to facilitate dialogue. I'm thinking, there's no point even. This is a terrible, terrible comment. So I started posting, what made you believe this? And he posted how he had grown up in an area where there are a lot of gangs, and he'd grown up seeing his friends and his brothers really have a lot of women attracted to them, because obviously they had more access to resources through the gangs. And so he shared this lived experience, and I carried on asking more questions. And then eventually I started asking him questions to get him to reflect on his beliefs. Like, is this really true? Do you think? And at the end, it was really a positive turn in the conversation of him saying he doesn't actually believe women like violence and all of this. So if you can imagine, so obviously once off like that is just not going to just shift everything. But when you've got thousands of people that know how to use this methodology and are engaging online in a different way and also amplifying positive content, it becomes something very powerful. And we have online sessions where we get people from across the globe to join in these dialogue sessions, to be amplifying positive content and to be having these dialogues online. So we've also done studies with the University of Washington to prove that this methodology is effective, and it helps to reduce mis and disinformation by getting people not to reshare negative content, by not trusting and believing. So it just kind of calms the conversation. And the best thing about it is that we're just asking questions like, is this true? Where did you get the information from? So we are not saying we have the truth. I think that's a huge thing today of like, who holds the truth? Who knows the facts? It's really just getting people to think for themselves and critically engage with information online. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. It's really been a great honor to present with Lorraine and Maloba and really the incredible work that they're doing. We all are very passionate, obviously, about this social impact space and making a difference. So please reach out if you have any questions. Just reach out to us. Tales of Turning, we're also all about collaboration. So reach out to us if you would like to get involved, and same, reach out to Lorraine and Moleba if you would like to get involved in their work.